Hey guys, greetings from the Smoky Mountains. Thanks for tuning in to Miles to Go. In today's video, I just want to give a quick update on my plans for through hiking the Pacific Crest Trail in 2021. In case you don't know, the Pacific Crest Trail, or PCT, is a U.S. National Scenic Trail spanning from the Mexican border to the Canadian border for about 2,600 miles through California, Oregon, and Washington. Since about 2019, I've been planning and saving for a through hike of the PCT in 2021. And again, in case you don't know what I mean by through hike, a through hike is a continuous trip on the trail or hike in one season. So I plan to hike the entire trail continuously in about 6 months. However, a lot has happened since I committed to that plan. As we all know, 2020 has been a crazy year, most notably because of the COVID pandemic. In the beginning of the year, when COVID, first became this huge, terrible thing, I felt really bad for those who had planned a 2020 through hike and some who had even started the trail and had to cancel or postpone. I couldn't imagine how devastated those people must have been, but I thought for sure that I would be good for 2021. I was really glad that I had planned the hike for that year instead of 2020. But now we're at the end of 2020 and COVID is still here. COVID is still a problem. In October, the PCTA, or the PCT Association, normally issues long distance hiking permits for through hikers for the following season. And this year in September, they announced that they basically wouldn't be issuing permits in October like usual, and that they were evaluating if or when they would do those permits and make an announcement on January 15th. So we're still waiting for that. And since then, more things have happened. The wildfires out west were, of course, devastating, and the PCTA still hasn't been able to completely evaluate the damages from the fires, so we don't know what that looks like in terms of closures and reroutes for the PCT from the 2020 season, much less, what might happen in 2021. So a lot's up in the air, and those who are planning a through hike for 2021 of the PCT are considering all kinds of different options for next year with so much uncertainty. And of course, I'm in that, club with the rest of them. So at first, I thought that without the long distance permit from the PCTA, it would not be possible or permitted to complete a through hike of the PCT, but I quickly learned that that's not exactly the case. The long distance permit issued by the PCTA is a result of a partnership with the U.S. Forest Service, and it's basically a convenience for through hikers. It allows you to have one permit for the whole trail, or almost the whole trail, instead of all the individual permits that would otherwise be necessary. So I don't mean to understate it by calling it a convenience. It's a huge help to through hikers, and it helps the PCTA to manage how many people are starting when and so on. Without it, it is actually possible to hike the PCT. You just have to apply for all those individual permits instead of the one permit. So that's a pretty big deal. It's no small task to figure it all out and get all the permits in the right timing in the right place, but it is possible. So for many 2021 PCT through hiker hopefuls, their plan B is to get all the individual permits instead of that one long distance permit if the PCTA decides not to issue it for the 2021 season. Still, other hikers are saying, I don't care about permits, I'm just going to get out there and hike. And then others are saying, I'm going to postpone my hike, I'm going to change my hike, I'm going to cancel my hike. So there are a few different options, and I have been, of course, carefully considering, if not obsessing over all of those options since the PCTA decided to not issue permits in October. So I'll start with the obvious. If the PCTA does announce in January that they will be issuing the long distance hiker permits, I will definitely still be hiking the PCT in 2021. No doubt. If they issue the permits, I'm going to do my very best to get one and to through hike the PCT in 2021 as planned. If the PCTA does not issue long distance permits for next year, I most likely will not through hike the PCT in 2021. I initially considered getting all those individual permits like many are doing. I never really considered just disregarding the permits, but certainly, going through the hassle of getting all those permits seemed like a good option at first. But then I've basically decided that that's just a huge logistical burden and a lot of added stress that I really don't want to have on my thru hike. And what's more, when I do hike the PCT, whether it's next year or sometime in the future, if I get to do that, I want to do it with the support of the PCTA. If they make the very difficult decision to not issue the thru hiking permits for next year, I just believe that they'll have had good reason to do that. I know that's kind of a controversial position to take, but that's where I stand, in addition to just not wanting that stress of the logistical burden of getting all the individual permits for my thru hike. So it may seem like that would only leave one option, which would be to postpone my hike, but I actually don't plan to do that either. I have saved and planned and dreamed about this for too long, and I just don't want to wait another year to do this. So if I do not hike the PCT in 2021, I still plan to spend 6 months hiking another trail or another few trails. So that is my official backup plan, is to change gears completely and spend 6 months hiking somewhere else. So the other options that I've considered if I do not hike the PCT in 2021 are, of course, the other Triple Crown trails, the Appalachian Trail and the Continental Divide Trail. I initially ruled out the CDT, the Continental Divide Trail, because it's just kind of known for being the most difficult, the most grueling, the longest water carries, grizzly bears, longest distance to town, most difficult to navigate, most difficult logistically, all of that. So as a newbie to backpacking, and certainly as a newbie to thru hiking, I just didn't think that, I would be up to the CDT for my first thru hike. So I ruled that out initially. And then the AT, the Appalachian Trail, of course, it's the most iconic. It's most people's first thru hike. I love the Appalachian Mountains, but for some reason, it's just not in my heart to do the AT. I spent a lot of time in that terrain in this area, and I just want to do something different. I want to see something different that I've never seen before. The AT is just not the experience that I'm looking for right now. I've tried to want to do the AT because it would make so much sense and be easier in so many ways for me to do that, but it's just not what I want to do. And then, there are other trails aside from the Triple Crown trails. I could string together a few smaller trails such as the Pinhoti, the Colorado Trail, the Arizona Trail, and I could have an awesome 6 months or so hiking different trails and seeing different areas. But of those options, stringing together some smaller trails just doesn't have that epic thru hike quality that I want. That's not to say that it still wouldn't be an incredible experience. Of course, I know it would, but I just still want that, big thru hike experience. So even though I initially ruled out the CDT, that's actually what I've come back to as my plan B if I don't hike the PCT in 2021. Now, I know, as I said, that the CDT is probably the most difficult of the three. It's the longest. Also, it's about 3,100 miles. And am I sure about that decision? No. But it's what I want in a hike. If I can't do the PCT, the CDT comes closest to being what I am looking for, the experience I want. And I have debated and gone through all the different options, so much. I mean, I've pretty much obsessed over that since the PCTA decided not to issue those permits in October. And I just keep coming back to the CDT. So at this point, that's my official plan. If I don't hike the PCT in 2021, I plan to hike the CDT. So all that leaves is for me to wait and see what the PCTA decides for issuing the thru hiker permits for 2021. If they announce in January that they are issuing those permits, then I am absolutely planning to get one and thru hike the PCT in 2021. But if they don't, my backup plan is to hike the Continental Divide Trail. So wish me luck. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Please hit like and subscribe. If you stick around next year, there should be some kind of awesome adventure on one of those trails. And I'm looking forward to it either way. Thank you guys for watching.